The program and the live feed of the program is starting in 5 minutes.
Hinam shi tzalegi lecho Eloi She was normal. It's a big deal. She was normal. She was authentic. She was genuine. She was upbeat. She had a zest for life, a joy for life. She was a gorgeous human being on many levels. And she knew how to bring out the best in people. She loved people. She loved life. She was a person of nobility, of conviction, of values, but very balanced. She seemed to me always healthy, emotionally healthy, centered, balanced, anchored in herself, and therefore could be so giving and generous. She had an emotional equilibrium about her. You know, some people, even if you didn't know them so well, you didn't spend so much time with them, but when you hear their name, it just triggers a positive feeling in you, like your heart swells with positivity. Razel Wolvovsky is one of those people. First time I think I had a conversation with her, it was back in 1996, Tovshinun Vov. I was a yeshiva bacher. I was sitting and learning. I was a pretty young bacher at the time. I had the privilege of being part of the Chayzrim to review the Rebbe Sichos. I would give some shiurim, not many. I gave some shiurim. Mostly I would learn. I worked in the Sichos. And I get a call one day from Razel Wolvovsky. How can I help you? I'm making a bar mitzvah for my son Shmuli, and I want you to be the featured keynote speaker at the bar mitzvah. Now, I have to say, I wasn't a public speaker at the time. I gave a few shiurim, small shiurim, and I gave chazara from Sichos. That's what I did. That was it. So I assumed that she certainly made a mistake. I told her, you got the wrong person. I don't do this. No, I didn't get the wrong person. I heard you. I guess she heard a shir or she heard a chazara. I want you to speak. I said, I don't do this for a living. I don't do this not for a living. It's just not. It's not what I do. And it's not like I was connected to the bar mitzvah. I'm not a relative, and I wasn't a close friend of the family. I mean, I knew the family, but I didn't really belong at the bar mitzvah. Why do you want me to speak? And she says to me, we need to inspire today the young people. The young people need chayas. Those were her words. The young people need chayas. They need vitality. They need zest. They need enthusiasm. They need emes. They need truth. And you know how to speak to the young people. I want that my bar mitzvah bacher and his whole class who's going to be there, I want them to be touched at this bar mitzvah. And I want all of my children that will be there to be touched. And I want all the bacherim that are there to be touched at this bar mitzvah. He says sometimes there's bar mitzvahs, they come and one person speaks, another person speaks. Drashas after drash. Somehow you know how to speak to the young people, and therefore I want you at this bar mitzvah. I have to tell you, just that conversation with her was really a breath of fresh air. And I came to the bar mitzvah. I was awkward, but I spoke. I don't remember what I said, but I knew that she liked it. And then I started to get some other invitations, and the ball started to roll. And she was, I think, the first one, or one of the first people who really helped me go into this whole world of public communication, for which I'm profoundly grateful to her. But it was just, it was such an interesting conversation. It shows you what type of person she was. A few years later, she invited me once to speak to a group of educators. As you know, she was involved her whole life in chinuch of young children, and she loved it. She cherished it very deeply. And she invited me to speak at a conference of educators. So she introduced me. And I still remember the introduction. It was also it was a moving introduction. She says, why did I bring Rabbi Jacobson to speak? Why do people like to hear him? She says, I want to tell you an idea that I heard from an older chassid. I think She attributed it to Reb Michal Teitelbaum, the founder of Ahal Torah, and if I'm not mistaken, his wife was present at the event. That fishermen go out to the rivers, the lakes, and the ponds to fish and catch fish after a rain, because during a rain, many fish rise to the surface, so it's a good time to catch them. Asked Mrs. Wolvovsky why, and the answer is because they want water. They want the rainwater, so they come to the top to irrigate themselves, to quench their thirst with the rainwater. She asked the question, it doesn't make sense. They're submerged in water 24/7. What do they need rainwater? And she said in a classic Russian Yiddish, she says, I still remember, weil the fish willen frische Wasser. They want fresh water. They're in water all day and all night. They can't leave the water. As Rabbi Akiva said in the famous Mashal and Brachas, Samach Aleph. But when there's a rain, there's new water. It's not part of their natural habitat. So they swim up to the top of the lakes in order to get the fresh water. So she said there's many speakers, and they give speeches, but they regurgitate, the same old ideas. She says, our speaker today, he gives fresh water. There's always something fresh and new, a new angle, a new dimension, a new depth, a new story, a new insight. People want fresh water. She said some other nice things, but this I vividly recall. And it was so classic of her. There's a Yiddish word called farginen. Farginen means you tolerate other people's successes. For me, Mrs. Wolvovsky was the ultimate farginer. She didn't only tolerate other people's successes. She celebrated it. She enjoyed it. And the reason is because she was humble, and she was confident, and she was real, and she was authentic. So it's not like she tolerated when other people shined. She loved when other people shined. And she knew how to help them see that in themselves and help them accentuate that part of themselves and really bring it out from them. And whenever I met her, whenever we spoke, even for a short time, she was always so filled with compliments and positive energy and encouraging, invigorating words. It was like you wanted to be in the presence of such a person, because there are people who bring out the worst in you. And there are people who bring out nothing special in you, and there are people who bring out the best in you because they see it and they celebrate it. And she enjoyed it. It was like an enjoyment for her. And it came because she was normal and balanced and caring and giving and extremely loving. She didn't take herself so seriously. She had a very healthy ego. She was a very humble and noble person. And therefore, just to think of her presence, think of her name, triggers within me such a positive energy. Her life enriched us all. Her death impoverishes us all. But I know, especially when I see her beautiful family and her beautiful children, you could see the harvest of her labor. You could see the fruit of her dedication, and her husband's dedication. You could see it in the children, you could see it in the grandchildren. Each one of you carries her light, her love, her normalcy, her centeredness. And I know that her flame will never be extinguished. Thank you.
Welcome. Good evening and welcome to everyone. Tonight we come to mark the Shloshim of our dear mother, Adol Razel, Bas Avram David. I'd like to begin with a l'chaim to my dear father. Ta, may the Eibishter shower you with kol tov sela and good health and much nachas from the family. You have shown us by example your devotion and dedication to Mommy every step of the way. And the greatest gift that you have both given us is our beautiful family. L'chaim. To my dear Baba Wilhelm, and to my Safta Wolvovsky in Eretz Yisrael, who will hear this, we wish you lange, gute, gesunte, gebenchte Jahren. We as a family have come to learn of just some of the lives that my mother's touched, the impact that she's made, and her far reach. But the truth is that any words that we say will be limiting. So, Ma, I ask you, we ask forgiveness even before we begin, because we know it will be limiting. However, the purpose of our gathering tonight is, Ma, as one of your top 10, Ish Esri'eu Ya'azeru Uleachiv Yamar Chazak, to strengthen each other as family, friends, neighbors, students, fellow co-workers, and community members, to get the well-needed chizuk that we need from each other. When preparing for tonight, I found the Hashgacha Pratis coming from the Parsha. My mother was always very excited about Shabbos Chazak, and she imbued it in her students and children. This week, when I heard those words in Shul, I thought, boy, I really need the strength. We really need the strength just to simply move on. And then, as I sat down to prepare lesson plans for my own class, I could hear my mother singing in the phone to me her special song for Parshas Shemais. Those of you that know me know that I could sing like this. So, Shifra and Pua had no fear. To the mommies they stayed near. Thank you, Shifra. Thank you, Pua. We'll always remember to trust in Hashem. Yes, even when it seems so difficult and challenging, and we miss you so much, we will always remember to trust in Hashem. He has a plan. I came prepared. With the combined chizuk that we give each other, let us strengthen that trust and beg Hashem to let us see his greatest plan of Ma, as you always said, revealed good with the coming of Mashiach right away. We begin with words of tefillah, words of Tehillim. 1463 President is where grandchildren get quality time with Babi and Zaidi, deep conversation, meaningful discussion, and lots of fun over good food. She knew what each one of her grandchildren liked. Leading us into Tehillim, followed by thoughts from a granddaughter, is Meryl Mintz.
Shira Malais Aladene Batsrasali Karasi Vayanini. Oh, sorry. Adene Atila Nafshi Misfa Shakar Milashain Ramia. Maitin Lacha Uma Yosef Lach Lashain Ramia. Chitzi Giber Shanunim Im Gachale Rasamim. Aya Li Kigarti Meshach Shachanti Im Ale Keder. Rabbas Shachnala Nafshi Im Saine Shalom Ani Shalom Mechia Davar Himala Muhammad. Lamnatseach Mizmar David, Yancha Dene Biam Tsar Yasakevcha Shem Elehe Yaakov, Yeshlach Ezracha Mikaidesh Imitzian Yesadeka, Yizkar Kalman Chaisecha Vailas Chaidash Nasela, Yitin Lecha Chovavecha V'chalatzas Chayimale, Nuranana Bishua Secha Uvashem Elehenu Nidgal, Yamale Adene Kalmashale Secha, Ata Yidaiti Kieshia Dene Mishichai Yane Mishme Kache, Bigvores Yesha Yiminai. Ela varacha ve'ela vasusem va'anachnu m'shem Adonai Eloheinu nazkir. He makaru v'nafalu va'anachnu kamnu v'nisei dad Adonai Yeshia hamalach yaninu v'yem karinu. I feel so privileged to have such an exceptionally special woman as my Bubby. One of the very top perks of living in Crown Heights for 6 years was having Bubby right here. Bubby loved me. She loved all of us grandchildren, and she showed it. We know it well, and we feel it strongly. Bubby expressed her love by taking me out for my birthday and making the food she knew I liked best. I felt it when she stopped everything and would just spend time with me and talk. I felt it when she would voice note with me and show so much interest in all of the random things and details of my life. I felt it by the way she greeted me at the door when I'd come by. I felt it by the big things and small alike. Once when I came to New York with my family, she called up the taxi that we were using to pick us up to find out who would be the driver so that she could send food with the taxi so we'd have hot food when we land. That's a lot of details right there, but to Bubby, this was all very normal. Bubby had such a connection with all her grandchildren, both local and far. Whenever I would go home, I knew that for sure I would have to save some room for a full shopping bag of her signature treats, and my siblings ended up expecting it. When I was up to Shidduchim, Bubby was my absolute go-to to get a squeeze from before a date, send pictures of what I was wearing, hear some helpful pointers, and then follow up with right after to tell her how it went. She always knew exactly what to say and showed her excitement when things got exciting. This is the same love that she used to so gently and carefully guide me in showing what's right, what's wrong, what's priority, and what can wait. She complimented me on my strong points, and in some way that I can't even pin exactly, she helped me with what I could be better in. Even more valuable is that she really was the truest living example of everything true and good that I could think of. And that is something that still lives on so strongly. It didn't take her absence to show us her example. We all knew so consciously that Bubby just has it all together and she has it right. The past few weeks have only shown that more and more. Bubby's example is something that will only grow stronger if we try to emulate the way she went about life. I'm here representing all my cousins who each can share plenty about their own connection and special relationship with our Bubby. I'm so forever grateful to Bubby, and I will only see and feel that more and more.
Shidduchim, daughters-in-law, sons-in-law, they all felt loved, warm, and welcome. Mommy knew how to connect with each one and to make each one feel special. Tonight, my sister-in-law Yehudis from Glastonbury, Connecticut, will share her thoughts with us. She represents many families from Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania, Glastonbury, Connecticut, Santa Rosa, California, Silver Spring, Maryland, Brooklyn, New York, Florence, Italy, Boca Raton, Florida, Morristown, New Jersey, and Lauderhill, Florida. Each one she cherished so dearly. Yehudis.
Dearest Schwigger, I've written and rewritten this letter over and over in my mind these past few weeks. There is so much to say, and I'll never have said it all. Where do I start? How can I say goodbye to someone whose life is so intertwined with mine? How can I possibly thank someone who has given me so much, above all else, my beloved husband? Thank you, Schwigger. Thank you for welcoming me into your family and into your heart, without judgment, with complete acceptance, with so much love. Thank you for expressing your love in so many ways, with calls and texts, with sweet cards, with thoughtful gifts, always trying to consider what I may need or want at that time. Thank you for expressing care and concern in many forms. You would check up on me if we hadn't spoken in a few days. You would ask about events and special occasions. You would stay in touch more often when I wasn't feeling well. Not only would you keep up about the events of my life, you would ask about my siblings and friends. And of course, a trip would never be complete without a check-in that I've arrived safely home. Thank you for being the most incredible role model as a mother, a teacher, and a chassid. You parented your children with so much love and specific attention. You opened your home to guests with so much warmth. You grew excited to tell how you taught a concept in Torah. You regularly attended shiurim, passionately sharing what you learned. You relished the opportunity to host a farbrengen, enjoying the nigunim, the stories, the electric atmosphere. You davened, each word said with such care. You modeled a tznius woman, dressed with class and grace. You were so careful to wear a sheitel, even at times when it was a challenge. Above all else, you made a life of Torah and mitzvahs, a life of joy and enthusiasm. Thank you for encouraging us in our role as parents. You felt we handled it. You gently offered suggestions when you had a different perspective to offer. You loved our children with all your heart and soul. You noticed their special qualities and took interest in the details of their lives. You made our children feel that they were your greatest gifts. Thank you for taking so much pride in our accomplishments. You celebrated our successes, big and small. I knew how much joy, each success, each event would bring you. I loved sharing with you, knowing how happy you would be. The most difficult part of this Hanukkah was going through each beautiful moment with the family, with the community, excited to share it with you, and knowing my sharing would have to take a different form. Thank you for taking an active role in our simchas, interested in every detail. You were always looking for ways to take part in this celebration. Thank you for your empathy and sensitivity in the more painful moments. You respected my space and provided support in ways that made me feel seen and understood. Thank you for showing me how family is the highest priority. Nothing brought you greater joy than family togetherness. Watching the way you reveled in the moments your children were together taught me what a precious gift it is. You created opportunities for family get-togethers, gifting us with the most incredible memories. Thank you for showing me how to live with true emunah and bitachon. Throughout these last few years, you shone with positivity. Never once did I detect fear or anxiety. Even during the harder times, you were always concerned about others. It was never about your suffering. The common theme over the past few years was gratitude. You were grateful for each moment, each day, each simcha. You expressed gratitude for your incredible family and friends. I never realized how much space you took up in my heart until I felt the aching void. So many empty spaces that can't be filled. I miss you in the big moments and in the quiet spaces of time. Having your loving presence in my life allowed me to live with a sense of belonging and connection. I don't know how one person can mean so much to so many. I don't know how we will fill the void. I do know that each and every day I strive to be a little more like you, to care more, to give more, to share more. It's hard to look at a picture of you, to see a stone representing your resting place, as if time has stopped for you and we have to keep moving without you. But Shviger, I also know that your body was just a temporary vessel. Your soul is strong and everlasting, and that bond will remain. Shviger, I won't say goodbye. I know you are with me. I know that just as it is a time of transition in my life, it is the same for you. The one thing I ask you is to please allow me to feel your presence in my life. I need you. Love, Yehudis.
Okay. Keeping the family and extended family together was my mother's specialty. Shabbos and Yantif meals, Lava Malkos, Chasidish, Emem Tovim, the list goes on. Representing the Wilhelm siblings and family, I ask my dear Aunt Chana Wilhelm from Minnesota, now Muncie, to please share her reflections.
It's surreal to me that we're here celebrating Razel's Shloshim. So please bear with me as I collect my thoughts. There's a story brought down in Gemara when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was on his deathbed. And his Talmidim came to visit him when he burst into tears. And he said, Rebbe, why are you crying? And he answered them, Eini idea eifei malichin I see. I have no idea where I will be led. Will I be led to Gan Eden or Chas v'Shalom, the opposite? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the leader of his generation, did he really think that he might end up in Gehenna? The Chasam Sofer says that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's message to his Talmidim was, I don't know eifei malichin I see, where you, as my students, will take my legacy. Where will my legacy that I poured my heart and soul, giving it over to you and to Klal Yisrael in order to be able to forge a path ahead of the darkness of the Churban, where will that go? And to this, his Talmidim answered, Rebbe, Barchenu, give us a bracha because it is a challenge. It's not an easy challenge. And to live up to your legacy, we need your special bracha. A person's legacy is their everlasting impression that they leave here down on earth. It is the v'hachai yitena libai. What we as living mortals must take to heart and act upon. It is how we, as those who have learned from Razel, essentially her Talmidais, can carry on and thereby continue her life. And so what is Razel's legacy? Everyone has their unique perspective. I, as a sister-in-law who lived out of town, saw these angles. Razel embodied so many midas taivas, both bein adam lamakam and bein adam lachaverai. But if I was forced to choose a midah that she excelled in, something that really stood out, I would say something that Rabbi Jacobson mentioned. Razel was able to forgive another person with her whole heart and soul. To forgive another person, you first need to notice them. You need to notice what they have done. You need to notice their simchas. And Razel noticed. And Razel was not stingy with her words to express her simcha, to express her confidence in you, to express the compliments. About 20 years ago or so, my husband, Razel's younger brother, and the age gap is significant, made a dinner for his yeshiva and brought out the chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Meir Lau, to speak. It was a big deal. He duly invited his mother, my dear Shviger, Shetachia, to come and join in the nachas. On her own volition, Razel decided to join my Shviger in order to bask in her brother's simcha and her brother's nachas. I was an overwhelmed young mother with a husband who was way too busy, and I was still able to notice how Razel delighted in her brother's success. And during that visit, she made sure to connect with each and every single one of my children, knowing exactly what to ask, what was age appropriate, what they were learning in school, who the teachers were. Now, we're all aware that as our families grow and we get busier with our in-laws, with our grandchildren, it takes up a lot of brain space. It's hard to remember about the rest of the family, the extended family. And as Razel's family grew in leaps and bounds, I was always amazed how Razel's level of interest and involvement stayed strong with everyone. When my children left home to go out of town for school, Razel was on the phone asking, how are they adjusting to the dorm? When they got married, living in Crown Heights, settling in their first apartment, when they moved out of Crown Heights, she always wanted to know, how are they settling in? How are they adjusting to their new positions? Razel's grandson was in yeshiva with my son, and they went on Mitzrayim together. When Razel's grandson called to say Good Shabbos, Razel asked to speak to my son, to thank him for looking out for her grandson, for taking him on Mitzrayim, for showing him the routes. And I think every week since then, Razel made sure to say Good Shabbos to my son. And this is as Razel's family was growing, and she had countless grandchildren, Kanai Nahara, but she still remembered her nephew who was in yeshiva. She noticed how my shy youngest daughter grew out of her shell and became more social. And the beauty of it all was that her forgiving worked in the opposite direction too. What she gave to others, she didn't necessarily expect others to do for her. Batya, I remember when you were a Kala, first grandchild on the Wilhelm side, it was a momentous occasion. The plans were in full swing. I had just given birth to my second child, and to plan a trip to New York seemed overwhelming at the time, clothing myself and the children, and I wasn't sure what to do. Razel, in her sensitivity, and even though she was busy planning a wedding, made sure to call me, specifically me, and tell me, Chana, we would love for you to join. It would add so much to our simcha, but absolutely no pressure. I learned from Razel how to express to people how much we would love for them, people, family, for them to join our simcha, but never to pressure. There's so much I want to share, and as you can see, I'm just skipping pages because I can't fit it all within the time. Razel's sensitivity to others' feelings was legendary. When my husband was between jobs, Razel made sure to call him, to call me, to check in, just to check in on his mood. When my kids were newlyweds, without parents in town or in-laws in town, constant invitations, not only for them, but bring your friends over too. I can't tell you the countless amount of times that Minnesota singles and Minnesota young married couples ended up at Razel's table. Because when she came to our family simchas, she befriended the people in our community as if it was her community. As newlyweds, my husband and I would end up regularly at Razel's house. I remember the first time when we stopped off in the middle of the week, and my husband just popped in, walked into Razel's kitchen, opened her fridge, and helped himself to whatever he wanted. I was mortified. Nachman, you have to call. You have to make sure it's okay. Maybe Razel needs the food for something else. But I very quickly learned why my husband felt so comfortable. We were always welcome, always with a smile. And Razel really was like my second shviger, but only in the best of ways. She looked out for me, even through a devastating loss, knew exactly what to say. Every Friday night, we joined my shver and shviger. And Shabbos day, in order to make it to the Rebbe's Farbrengen, Razel's house was the closest. We were there every single Seudas Shabbos, rain or shine. When I think, and her, just add one more point, that her hospitality and sensitivity extended itself across generations to include even my parents. She literally jumped at the chance to, and I quote, have the schus to host your parents, Chana. She made me feel good at how honored she was, and she forged a very warm relationship with my parents. As life went on, and my husband and I our family grew, we consulted Razel about challenging chinuch situations, about shidduch prospects, and her advice was always on point, and with a sensitivity to follow up to see if possibly there was more she might be able to do. We all know how important it was for Razel to be fully dressed, looking her best like a bas melech. When I think about how Razel always presented herself, it wasn't just about looking her best. I think about the times when we're not dressed to meet company, and we hesitate to go open the door. We hesitate to greet a person because we don't feel comfortable. Razel was always ready for chesed, always ready to go to the door, to greet a person with a smile, to say a kind word. Her way of presenting herself was an extension of her chesed. Ultimately, though, what she derived the most enjoyment was from a good Dvar Torah. Her face would literally light up when listening to a good shir. And every once in a while she'd say, Chana, do you want me to share with you a really good Vart that I heard? And she would literally delight in repeating a new, fresh idea. Razel's full name was Adel Razel. I'm going to quote something that my husband told me, otherwise I won't hear the end of it. Adel, Aleph Dalad Lamed, is Rashi Teva, is for Eish Das Lamai. The full pasuk is, or the full half of the pasuk is Miminai Eish Das Lamai. From the right, Hashem, from his right hand, he gave his fairy Torah. It roughly translates. It's a seeming contradiction. Right represents chesed. Fire represents gevura. Razel showed us exactly how to blend the two. When the Torah talks about how to give someone teichacha, it should be given the way Razel gave teichacha or advice to people. Her manner was always calm. Her words were always soft. And we knew that it always stemmed from true caring. And that's why it was so palatable. She said what had to be said. She had her opinions. They were, however, said with her characteristic congeniality. The last few years, as I would ask Razel, how are you? How are you feeling? Her typical answer was, as she was going through her harder days, I'm so appreciative. I'm looking forward to better days. It made me think, maybe Razel can accomplish what all those beforehand have not been able to accomplish by strong demands. Maybe Razel, with her sensitivity, with her way of asking, with her appreciation, maybe the way we need to approach asking for Mashiach is, Eibishter, we're so appreciative, but we need better days. We need them, and we're looking forward to better days. I want to end with a thought that my father, Zoltan Zain, shared with us as we were sitting Shiva for my mother. He told us that when a parent passes away, all direct descendants, children, grandchildren, and generations till the end of time, affect an aliyah to the neshama any time they do a mitzvah. There is no need to mention le'ilui neshmas, as opposed to others, friends, even spouses, who are not a direct link and do need to mention the concept of le'ilui neshmas. So, Batya, Yosef, Mendel, Berla, Shleimela, Shmuley, Levi, Shner Zalman, Maishala, Mushki, and Rishi. I want you to know your mother will always be there for you, but you also have to be there for her. Keeping up her rich legacy by passing it on to your next generation, that is what's going to bring Mashiach and bring your mother back to be here with us. May it be taken from Miyad Mamash.
Thank you, Hannah. I remember your parents staying in the basement those few times. My mother's love of family extended to the next generation. Nieces and nephews were showered with her love as well. She knew who had a simcha. She knew who was going through a rough time. She knew who's still waiting for a bracha for children. And she knew to always check in on them. I'd like to thank my cousin, Mendel Wilhelm from New Haven, for agreeing to share some of how he was touched by his dear Tante Razel.
L'chaim, l'chaim. Guten Abend. We took care of the Yiddish. Tonight I'm representing actually two, special groups of people. The first one is a group of 76 individuals who are privileged to be able to call Razel our aunt. And that's just on the Wilhelm side. The second group is the countless people who were touched by Razel's extended reach. Now, tonight we celebrate life and living. Tonight we confront the pain of loss and the gain of lessons. Lessons learned and lessons applied with perhaps an underlying embrace of our own vulnerabilities. Back in the day, it was either a Yom Tov meal at Bubby and Zadie's or a Shabbos meal at Razel and Munya. Of course, there was the stop by and linger for a while by me and my father at the always bustling 1463 President Street, much to my mother's chagrin, by the way. On the way home from 770, the blissfulness of the Shabbos spirit, the elegance of the Shabbos table, not to mention the welcoming warmth of the radiant hostess, was more than enough to make even the uninvited guest feel at total ease. We were the uninvited guest. During my childhood, my connection to my aunt was relegated to the realm of normal, cordial aunt-nephew relations. However, at the age of 17, that all changed due to the following story. I, an outgoing, gregarious kid, full of life and fervor, had fallen into the pit known as depression. For no apparent reason, I began resisting going to yeshiva and socializing altogether. I secluded myself. And Bubby came to visit. That's true. I secluded myself in my basement room indefinitely. Of course, my parents, in their respective style, tried frantically to remedy their son's melancholic affliction, but to no true avail. Days and weeks passed as I wallowed in my newfound state of subterranean seclusion. That's another way of saying basement. We'll have a few of those. One day, out of the blue really, my mother tells me, "Your Aunt Razel wants to meet with you." Now, I certainly wasn't on bad terms with my aunt. Nobody was. But at that point, there was one guy. In time, meeting with anyone outside of my immediate family circle, and even some inside my immediate family circle, evoked a deep sense of anxiety and trepidation. Thoughts went along something like this. What do they want from me? What do I have to say in response to their inquisitiveness? What kind of obligating recommendations will they prescribe for my plight? All of these fears and more created an impenetrable wall around me and my potential rescuers. I'm going to pause the story here for a second, and I want to say a word on depression and mental health. Although we certainly live in a progressive world, I'm not talking about from the political perspective, which made giant leaps forward in many important areas, but much progress must still be made on the mental health front. And I'm the son of a social worker. The young teenager in the throes of depression or anxiety contends not only with the pain of their own mental turmoil, but the societal stigma that accompanies their suffering. We need individually, but more importantly collectively, to recognize that just as we would never suggest or assume that an amputee should reconnect their severed limb, why do we so haphazardly assume that the depressed soul or anxiety-riddled youth could reconnect their shattered heart? Back to the story. There's a little light message there. Well, I thought, I don't know if it was the unthreatening, I don't know if it was the unthreatening nature of my eldest aunt or the mere shock of her wanting an audience with me. Like, why the heck would she want that? But I obliged. Very intriguing. So the following Wednesday, I emerged from my underground confines, that's the other reference, turned right out of my house and left onto Troy Avenue. That's 2 turns. Now, those 2 turns were a very big deal. No small feat. And we were headed towards a bagel shop for a lunch date with my tante Razel. While I don't recall what I ate for lunch that day, which is too bad really, I will never forget who had taken me out for lunch that day. So first she wondered at the stark turn of events from fun-loving, upbeat, best camper, actually of the whole Gagnon from Montreal, which is kind of strange, to reclusive isolationist. The lion's share of our bagel date focused, however, by the way, I recommend bagel dates whenever possible. The lion's share of our bagel date focused, however, on the imperative to reach out from yourself and give to others, regardless of how seemingly insignificant or substance-less the gesture may be or seem to the giver. She placed a particular disregard on the level of eagerness one feels towards the act of giving and assisting others. In other words, it doesn't matter if you want to do it, evoking the idea that the recipient's reception hinges not on the internal emotions of the giver. I remember her saying something to the effect of, only when you give of yourself to others can you truly begin to live. That was intriguing, definitely. There was no daunting tasks, there was no overwhelming regimens, and no imposing regulations. One simple yet profound message that my busy mother of 11, by the way, thank you, Shnei Zalman, for making that mistake. I messed up there in the original copy, and made the time to teach me in the most loving, authentic, and undiluted manner by example. When you give, you live. It's been 20 years since that fateful lunch on Troy Avenue. Now myself a father of 7 K'nai Nahara and a teacher of boys right around the age I was then. Yet I can assert without a doubt the lessons I learned on that day is my guiding light in all I do. I have since relentlessly attempted to convey my aunt's message and even fashioned a succinct, counterintuitive, attention-grabbing motto to capture the message. It goes like this: living selflessly is the most selfish way to live, since, of course, the giver is the ultimate beneficiary of the act. I want to relay a sensitive but pertinent message to parents that's indirectly related, or maybe more than indirectly related, to the above episode, especially parents of teenagers, and even more specifically to parents of defiant teenagers, if a distinction can be made between the two. In addition to life lessons learned in my current position as teacher and my previous role as menahel, glad that's done with, I've gleaned many insights into the teenager boy's mind and heart. For example, one comes to mind, I've charted a simple yet often overlooked or underestimated correlation between a teenage boy's mental and emotional well-being and having a strong, robust relationship with his father. This is not a knock against mothers, but this is the correlation that I came up with. But today, I want to appeal to parents' unwavering commitment to their child's well-being. It shouldn't be too difficult to appeal to. All parents want to be their child's hero. We want to play the leading role in inspiring and guiding our children, and for the most part, we are certainly afforded that opportunity. However, there are times in our child's development, for reasons that are beyond the scope of today's address, stay tuned for part 2, where parents have to take a step back to assume a supporting role rather than a leading one. See, the previously mentioned reflexive parental reaction may prevent a parent from taking this step back. However, placing priority on the successful navigation of our child's struggles rather than the grandness of our own contribution could often pave the way to the aunts, uncles, teachers, and many others to make their own positive, indelible mark on the developing youth. As a young 19-year-old newlywed, which is about the age that Razel got married, I think, my wife, Shayna, thank you, Shayna, for joining me here tonight and making the trek from New Haven. And there's 6 kids that are somewhere other than here. My wife, Shayna, joined Razel as an assistant teacher at Benos Menachem. She was fascinated and enthralled by her new aunt's teaching style and care. She was particularly inspired by the songs and igunim sung by Razel with the young, impressionable students. Being exposed to her first preschool teaching experience, she naively assumed that this is how all preschool classrooms function. It wasn't until a few years later and the participation in and the observation of teaching styles and classroom settings that it became clear to her that her first ride in her preschool teaching experience was with the Rolls Royce of teachers, a rear expedition of which the equivalent is non-existent. I want to touch on the very sensitive emotion of loss. The loss of a loved one, especially prematurely, evokes many feelings of despair, hopelessness, and anguish. Often anger and, yes, even cynicism dominate the consciousness. I'd like to offer the following analogy with the aim of alleviating the extent of these debilitating emotions. See, every neshama is like a seed. The duration of the neshama's time on earth is the equivalent of the seed's implantation into the ground. Just as a seed dispenses its nutrients into the soil, so too, the neshama dispenses its own unique godly nutrients into the people and places with which it divinely interacts. The conclusion of the neshama's avodah could therefore be equated to the germinating process of the seed following dormancy, as is highlighted, by the way, by the 2 parashas in Chumash Bereshis containing the word life in their title. Chai Sarah, dealing exclusively after Sarah's passing, and Parashas Vayichi, which deals with the passing of Yaakov. Just as the seed's decay becomes the catalyst of growth and blossoming, so does the ascent of the neshama signal the embodiment of its koiches by all who come or came in contact with it. The children, family, friends, and even peripheral acquaintances are inextricably embedded with the vivacious energy of the ascended neshama. The neshama is not gone because it continues in us. There's an old saying in English that some people are a jack of all trades and a master of none. My aunt was a jack of many trades. Mother, grandmother, certainly trades worthy, more than trades. Advisor, educator, the list goes on. But unlike the saying, she was indeed a master of all. And this is a sentiment I can wholeheartedly say is uninfluenced by the temptation of posthumous sanctimony, otherwise known as the Achrei Mos Kedoshim effect. She truly personified her name, Adul, which means graceful and noble, and Razel, a rose wafting her salubrious fragrance that's healthy for all to absorb it, extending the reach of her emes, allowing it to shine forth, touch all who came in contact with it. She is certainly her father's firstborn. Among the mysterious ways of the Eibishter, and there are many, or at least some may say they are many, is the signals of consolation he gives us when we suffer loss. These hints can come in many variations. I'd like to offer one of these signals. The Gemara says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev u'memalish neseim shel tzadikim miyom liyom u'mechodesh l'chodesh shenemar es mispar yomecha amale. In English, it teaches that the Eibishter sits and completes the years of the righteous from day to day and from month to month, as it says in the pasuk, the number of your days I will fulfill. So just as the Hasidic calendar reached its designated conclusion on the 18th of Kislev, so did Razel's neshama conclude its Avodah on Erev Yutes Kislev, Rosh Hashanah LaChasidus, at the conclusion of the year. I want to conclude with a bracha called from Kapitel Samach Zayin, Razel's Kapitel, a Kapitel that we say every single day in Shachris. Lodas ba'aretz darkecha b'chol goyim Yeshua secha, that your way be known on earth, your deliverance among all nations. Eretz nosna yevula, yivarchenu elihim elihenu. May the earth yield its produce. May God, our God, bless us. Yivarchenu elihim v'yiruosei kol afsei aretz. May Hashem bless us and be revered to the ends of the earth. Thank you, and l'chaim.
We'll save that for your mother. You know, during the Shabbos of Shiva, several of my brothers turned to me and said, Batya, come on, share with us some of the stuff. So many of Mommy's friends, well, they really wanted her, but. So I thought to myself, they said, tell us what they said. Tell us what they said. And I thought to myself, no, it's not what they said. It's what they didn't say. It's just when they sat down and we looked eye to eye with each other and cried and thought about the deep, real, sincere relationship that she had with her friends and the loss that will be there now and the job that we need to carry on. My mother cherished her friends. She spoke about her classmates like she just walked out of high school. She really, that's how she felt about them. Friends of all ages and of all stages. A chaver tov is a good friend, and she really, really cherished them. Tonight, I asked one of her very good friends, Mrs. Ella Lerman, to come and share her thoughts from friendship of over many years with us. Thank you, Mrs. Ella Lerman.
Good evening. Hi. I feel truly honored to have been asked to speak at our dear friend Razel's Shloshim. I know that everyone here tonight thinks of Razel as a dear, dear friend and not just as a mere acquaintance. Razel was beloved by all. She had the unique quality that we see by Esther Hamalka. In the Megillah it says that Esther was noises chen be'enei kol ra'eha. And the Talmud comments on Esther being beloved by all who saw her and says that anyone who saw Esther perceived her as being of their nation. Ein Esther magedas moladita. No one knew where she was from, and all thought that she was one of them. At the root level, there are 70 nations from which all other nations stem. The number 70 also corresponds to the 70 neshamas from Yaakov to Yocheved that descended together down to Mitzrayim. Chazal teaches us that each nation has one unique and positive characteristic that is derived from the core of these 70 Jewish neshamas. Esther, being the perfection of the Jewish woman, had within her all these qualities. Therefore, whoever looked at her identified her as one of their own. She reflected back to them their quintessential point of goodness. When I like somebody, I am responding to the best in me that I see in them. Only someone who has chen, grace, and is a complete person can be liked by all that see her. Razel had chen in spades, grace, dignity, beauty, and elegance. Everyone loved her, old, young. She possessed all the wonderful qualities, and she reflected back to us. She reflected them back to us. 5 years ago, my husband started seeing Razel's doctor. I knew that everyone at the office would know and love Razel, and I was right. All the doctors, the nurses, and many of the patients, they lit up when I told them that I was Razel's friend. What did Razel possess that made her so beloved by so many? Last week, Wednesday, some friends of Razel from Mountain Crest, President Street, her classmates, some of her relatives, we joined together to learn Le'ilu Nishmasa. We learned, we had a share, we laughed, we cried, and we talked about how Razel was so authentic and so genuine. She was beautiful inside and out. Her pnimius and her chitzenius matched. She was the epitome of a Yiddish Hasidic woman, 100% complete and sincere and confident in who she was. No outside influences, pure. I remember bringing my girls to her playgroup. I would half-jokingly tell her, "Why do I have to leave? Can't I stay here? Why do I have to go to high school?" I really wanted to stay there. Being around her felt so right. Everything had such a chassidische, Yiddische Warmkeit, warmth. There was no ambiguity. You know, Razel was accompanied by her husband and her sons to her appointments. But at the beginning, she sometimes insisted on taking the train. And once she told me, she said, you know, a new train opened up, the Q train was just newly opened, and it stopped at the doctor's office. And she said to me, I know that train was opened up just for me, this new train station just for me. And that's exactly what I mean. Everything in the world as seen through the eyes of a Torah Yid. When Razel spoke with you, you felt her attention. She was a great listener, and she genuinely wanted to hear what you had to say. She was curious, and she asked good questions. And you wanted to hear what she had to say. She was wise. Ask anybody whom she helped with shidduchim. She was understanding and extremely intuitive. She was encouraging and helpful. To me and my husband, she was and continues to be our beacon of light. So strong, so positive, so strong. She kept on cooking for Bikur Cholim even when she was unwell. A friend told me that Razel's husband told her at Shiva privately that Razel had said that it was harder for her to bear her friend's pain than to bear her own pain. And just as Razel was with you in sorrow, she was with you at Simchas, right? What Simchas HaChaim she had. Razel came to Chasanas and celebrated with you wholeheartedly. How she had the energy, I don't know. Every Nishay event, Vav Tishrei, Yud Aleph Nissen, Razel was there, showing her love and her respect to the Rebbe. Lo yichbe b'layla nera. Even through difficult personal times, her candle did not go out. The most invaluable lesson that Razel taught me many years ago has really shaped my life. Always be happy wherever you are. So we were sitting in Mountain Crest in the bungalow colony, and it was very, very early in the morning. Both Razel and I had children who were very early risers. And I was very, very tired, and I desperately wanted to go back to bed. And then I look over at Razel, and she's sitting in that Adirondack chair. She looks good, she's awake, she's smiling, she's happy. And I said to her, and her kids are running around her. She had beautiful children, one after another. And I said, how do you have such a positive attitude? And she explained by saying that people who are discontent when they want to be somewhere other than where they are. How I want to emulate Razel, such a zest for life. And how Razel loved her children, her nachas, her pride, her joy. Surely her wonderful children will continue her avodas hakodesh, her holy work, in the ruach of the chinuch she imbued in them. So even though our hearts are trembling with pain and our tear-filled eyes are filled with grief, we have the nechama, the consolation, in the words of the Rebbe from Yud Shvat Tavshin Nun Beis. The Rebbe says, Basi Legani, Hashem has come down to his garden and has gathered his Shoshanim, his Razel, his roses, all in the final step before the coming of Mashiach. Hikitzu v'ranu shechne afar, with the Shoshanim b'reisham. Thank you.
My mother was certainly an Aim Habanim Smecha. Baruch Hashem, the Simcha grew for the family, but especially for myself, when my sisters were born, Mushki and then Rishi. I asked my sister Mushki Gurevich from Morristown to share some life lessons that we can learn from my mother's life.
I'm standing here looking at so many of you, just picturing my mother walking up to you with a friendly greeting and a genuine smile. So thank you. My mother would be so happy that you are here. I'm not usually the speaker in the family. I probably never spoke to such a large crowd. I know that if I was doing this for any other occasion, I could imagine my mother afterward walking with me. And when meeting a friend on Kingston, which never didn't happen, she would put her arm around me and proudly say, "Did you hear Mushki speak? Wasn't she amazing?" And right now, Ma, I'll do anything to make you proud. The truth is, I always knew my mother was special. I was very proud to be her daughter. On first days of school, or when new people met me, and they would say, "You're Razel's?" I would feel so proud to say that I was. It was easy to feel that everyone loved her, and I did realize that not everyone did the things that she did. But after hearing countless stories, letters, and messages over the past few weeks, Mommy, I'm realizing I still took for granted what a giant of a person you were. The sheer amount of people that were touched by you is hard to grasp. If each person is a world, you turned countless worlds over. I kept watching and listening, just thinking how? How did one person do it all? I know I'll never get the answer to that. So I'm left with changing the question to how? How can I be more like that one person? If I devoted myself to just one of mommy's exceptional qualities and midas, that would already be amazing. Just one. But if I had to choose just one, which one would I choose? I don't know how I choose, but I promise that I will, because I have huge shoes to fill. Would it be just one extra place that I set for a Shabbos guest that may not have a meal? In your home, it was always so exciting and not unusual if it turned into a lot more than one. You and Tati created a home where everyone knew they were welcome. Or just one time I greet a neighbor on the street in a friendly way instead of rushing by. Or just one phone call to check in with a friend to see how they're doing. Like the time you would call my friend's mother to check on my classmate who was being picked on by a teacher. Or just one day that I am the person someone else can share and have me to call. Ma, I can't even describe how much I miss calling you about every child's lost tooth, every new thing I cook, every shluchos update, and hear how you are so, so proud. The small things sometimes hurt more than the big, because you may have been the only person who really cared about the silly stuff. This week, my son finished learning his first parsha in school, and my heart hurt realizing that his accomplishment won't be celebrated by his bubby as it usually was. Just one. Would it be just one farbrengen that I happily host? I loved going to sleep when one of my brothers were having a farbrengen in our home. It made me feel safe. Or just one warm and welcoming start to a little child's day. You always knew just the right thing to say. I feel lucky for each moment my children had with you, each one a treasure. Or just one thoughtful goodie bag to a child far away, finding a way to get it to your children that live out of town or those in camp. Those always meant so much, loaded with my favorite treats and a handwritten card. Or just one day, I put an effort to set the table beautifully for Hasidic Yom Tif. I remember coming home on some days and thinking, wait, what's today? Just one. Would it be just one effort that I make to help with a shidduch in your most caring, gentle way? Or just one homemade meal to someone unwell, made with so much love? If you can do that when you weren't feeling so well yourself. Would it be just one Friday package sent to someone to let them know that you are thinking of them, or to share in a joyous occasion, or to show hakaras hatayv? Just one day that can be hard, but somehow choose to fill it with joy. Just one. Would it be just one act of true Avas Yisrael, actually caring about the response when I ask someone, how are you? There's a reason you had so many friends, not limited to one circle. You didn't waste your energy on being jealous of others or yenting about them. Everyone just deserved your full attention, and you absolutely loved connecting with them. Would it be just one simcha I make sure to go with complete joy, even after a long or tiring day? Or just one random time I am as generous as you? I learned from you how good a surprise gift feels. Or just one time I show my children how much happiness Yiddishkeit and Chassidischkeit bring me. You had real hiskashros, watching the mitzvah tanks leaving, taking grandchildren to Asim Sefer Torah, beaming with pride as Shloshim poured into your home to farbring during the Kinnas HaShlochim. Things like that made you glow. Just one. Would it be just one message I give over to my own family? That family is everything. Achdus made you so happy. Family getting together, us getting together with our friends. It didn't take much thought for you to spontaneously decide to make a family Malava Malka and invite our aunts and uncles just because. I always knew the importance of family. But right now, I'm especially grateful because our family is what's holding me up. Would it be just one day I keep my sheitel on when it feels challenging? Would it be just one time I act with extra sensitivity and care? Like when you made sure I give 2 classmates that I thought may not get shalach manis before giving my friends, or not letting me join a party if not everyone was invited. Each story I hear, I realize how much you truly cared. Or just one time, I do what's right without thinking what others may think about it. That took confidence, Ma. And when you did something, you did it right, not as a chore to check it off your list. Just one. But none of these were just one. You did them all. I don't know how. Until I grew up and became a mother myself, I didn't even realize how much this is. I don't think I can do it all. It truly is exceptional. But I know that I will do more than just one. I definitely will, because I have huge shoes to fill. Most of all, I want to say thank you for this list of things. You showed me exactly what a Hasidic woman is, somehow managing to create that extremely delicate balance of having very high standards while still having a home filled with simcha. You were an exact role model of how I can raise my daughters. The words of Eshes Chayil describe you. If my focus ever blurs, I have you as my compass. You are the image of a chassid. I'd like to end off with the words my children now sing every night. Bubby, we love you. Bubby, we miss you. Please beg Hashem to send Mashiach now.
Thank you.
I'm going to end off with something of my mother's. This last year, I had the privilege of going back into the classroom more full-time, and my mother was so excited because I got to get many of her big Marshall's bags and big bags that were filled with props for every yontif and for every parsha and all those things. And over the last year, she'd go through them and she'd tell me about, this is how you use this, and this is how you do this, is what I did with that, and this is a song I used for this. And when I left the home for Shiva, I went back into that special room. And I found this. Now, when my mother put one of her teaching things in a plastic sheet protector, that means it was very important to her. Well, guess what I found? Ma, I think this is something that really pulls at my heart now and is so connected because it's a story about your namesake. To give credit, it was written by Bracha Getz. It's a short story, but it brings out a powerful message that I'm going to end off with. Adel was the daughter of the Baal Shem Tov. When this story happened, she had a little delightful baby boy. It was Rosh Hashanah, one of the holiest days of the year, and Adel wanted very much to daven. She gave her baby his breakfast, she changed the diaper, put it in the crib, hoping that he'd take a nap so she could pour out her feelings in prayer. But as soon as she opened up her machzor, she heard the baby start to cry. She walked over, saw her baby standing up, holding onto the bars of his crib. There were tears running down his little cheek. Adel walked over, but as soon as he saw his mommy, he stretched out his arms to give her a big, great, yummy smile. Adel hugged him tightly and scooped him out of his crib. As they cuddled together, his mommy told him his favorite story. Then Adel played with her baby, and they laughed a lot together. After that, Adel gave her son his lunch, And then he needed to have his diaper changed again. Before long, it was time for everyone to come back from shul, and Adel had never gotten the chance to pray. She looked upward and then whispered, "I only have time for one short prayer, so I will pray for you, the creator of the universe. My prayer for you is that you will have as much joy from all your children this year as you have given me from mine." She smiled, holding her baby so close. Ma, we pray that you look down and you have a lot of nachas from all of us. We are trying really hard, but as Mushki mentioned, the shoes are so big. They are so big to fill, but if we do just one, and just one of the messages that were shared tonight, we'll be trying our best, and we need your help from above. And to make sure that we leave with an uvachein, I'm going to ask my brother Yesef from Glastonbury, Connecticut, to come up and share something that we as our family have put together to help us with something concrete in my mother's loving memory. And I take this opportunity to thank each of my siblings and to bench us each with the strength that we need to continue to be there for each other. Thank you.
Aya, thank you for that introduction. And I want to say a special thank you to you because you're carrying a big burden. And it's not exactly like you to host an event like tonight. And it's not exactly like you to be the person that all mommy's friends come to speak to during Shiva. And yet you do it with so much strength and so much chen. So by Hashem should give you continued koyach, because everyone knows that you're mommy's daughter. Chaim. During Shiva, so one of my friends was talking to me and he said, you know, that he said, my mother, my friend told me, is your mother's classmate. And she has great memories and stories to tell of your mother. So I said, why don't you ask her to share it? So she sent me a voice note. One of them had to do with the first shidduch of her child. My mother called her. My mother started the conversation by saying, "Hast Scheuder zu verkaufen? Hast Scheuder zu verkaufen?" It was all about the v'achayit in a libri. All about the bottom line. You know what's at the Scheuder? Our Yiddishkeit is the Yiddishkeit of Maisa. And our Rebbe is a Rebbe of action. But my mother left us with so much to choose from. So many areas of chinuch and chesed and simcha and mishpacha and farbrenges and chassidischkeit. So the truth is that it's not easy to fill these shoes. I know we all spoke about it tonight. But you have to find the focus. And together as a family, led by our father, and I want to pay a special chaim to my father, who showed amazing kindness and sensitivity and strength not only in the last month, but the last few years, not only in areas of just regular kindness, but also in sharing and bringing in and allowing us to be part of this difficult and beautiful and complicated and uplifting process at the same time. So Chaim, that some of us said during Shiva, you should let us help you, and we should let you help us. Chaim. So we have to find a focus. So with the help of our Father and together, it's not exactly like we all have weak minds, so everyone's mind together. But we did choose 3 areas that we want to focus on most. And we really do want your help to keep our mother's neshama alive, to keep the spirit that we speak about tonight, to keep it in, not only in our hearts, but in our lives. When my friend, Chassidish Yungaman, who tells me that his Yutas Kislev was different this year because of my mother, it's like mind-boggling. So we would like to focus on the areas of Chassidish Chinuch, that my mother was uncompromising and at the same time so fun about, so like hands-on and realistic about. The area of young couples, the amount of, people don't like the word random, I don't either like it, but it's true. I could come to my parents' house and see a random couple, and the only reason they're there is because they're the friend of somebody who once came to Fabrengen. So Chassidish Chinuch and young couples, and then the area that where my mother really volunteered for and gave belev and nafsha for, even when she was weak and suffering herself, which is for those who were sick and vulnerable themselves. And the truth is, I over the last month, hundreds of people have reached out to us and have sent us emails and voice notes and WhatsApps and texts and letters. And it's like overwhelming. And I tried to put together for my own kids that they should be able to know who their bubby is, because they know how great, they know they love her and she loves them. But to remember and to know and to absorb in your own life these stories, it's overwhelming. But I ask you, please, if you have any specific stories with my mother, anything that uplifted you, that changed your perspective. Because I know that when I heard like one little snippet, I would reach out to somebody and I would get back 10 paragraphs, 3 stories. Unbelievable. So please share it with us. Share it with whichever, thank God we're a big family, with every sibling you're close with. Share it. Because that's really what gives us chizuk. And that's really what allows us to keep our mother's neshama active in our life. So together as a family, in order to perpetuate these 3 things, chinuch, chassidish chinuch, and young couples to help them establish a life in a positive way, and helping those who are vulnerable, we started a foundation. And it sounds crazy to me to say that there is an actual Razel Wolvovsky charitable foundation, but there is. And we started off, we said, we're not going to ask people to give tzedakah to a foundation if we're not going to invest ourselves. So we started off and we said, you know what, we're not going to do this unless we come up together as a family, led by our father and whoever else is capable of, with $50,000. But we exceeded that. And then we made a new goal, and since Hashem had it that our mother should pass away at the age of 66, so right now our new goal, which we're very close to reaching as a family, is $66,000. And what we're asking tonight is that if you choose to give tzedakah in honor and memory and a legacy of our mother, that you consider giving to the Razel Wolvovsky Charitable Foundation. And tonight you have opportunities if you want to give, both in person, outside. And by the way, our siblings agreed that my mother wants food at this event. So please don't leave before taking something, schmoozing with a friend. But on the way out, if you feel so compelled, to please stop at the tzedakah station. First of all, there are dimes there. You can just throw into the tzedakah pushka. So we have tzedakah over this event. And tzedakah is the biggest thing we could do for our neshama. But if you want to give, please give to the Razel Wolvovsky Charitable Foundation. You could also give on the website, and you could look it up right now, razelwolvovsky.com. You'll see some pictures and some stories. You could also give, I'm sorry to be so mundane, but today, you have kids who have cell phones and they teach you how to use it, so you have to know how to use it right away. So on the Cash App, or the what? Is it Cash App or is it Cash App? Cash App? Not, what's the other thing? PayPal also? Is RCW, RWC, that's Razel Wolvovsky Charitable, and then the word foundation. So you do the $, and then RCW Foundation, RWC Foundation. I'm being corrected by the screen. Anyhow, or you could give by swiping your card tonight, and we have a very nice young man. He happens to be married to my daughter, and you could find him. It's just the most good-looking guy. And yeah, but if you want to give a specific number, and if you want to do something special, my mother's gematria of her name, Adel Razel, is 292. And if you want to give something special, that we should be able to feel your companionship, your love on this journey. So we would very much appreciate that together we'll perpetuate our mother's neshama legacy to keep her own derech alive. The other day I was talking to my brother Shneur Zalman, and we were talking about my mother's unique qualities, and Shneur Zalman said, there's one quality that stands out for him. And that is, most people have a gap between their resolution in their mind and their implementation and action. And he said, Mommy didn't have that. When she knew something is right, something is good, something is the way it's supposed to be, she went straight to action. So of all the talks that happened tonight, I ask you please, whatever you took to heart, whether it's in Torah, Tefillah, Tzedakah, Chesed, Chasidus, or as we just spoken out now to contribute to our foundation, I ask you to please go, as my mother I think would do, straight to action. Thank you for being here. L'chaim, dear friends. Shmayo, it's your turn.
Razel taught me how to be a good Mechutan Esther. She modeled it with such grace and intelligence and beauty. And I really feel so lucky to have had her in my life.
For many, many years, students stayed there, but she would also host big, big dinners, and they were really put together nicely, and she would greet the students with such warmth and with such love, and we would bring there for many, many hours, and the warmth and the love that she embraced every student with was something beyond words.
And I want to say we bring in a group, Baruch Hashem, over 20 years for Gimel Tammuz. It all started in her house and Monya's. It was Yud Shvat, we had a Fabring there, and we decided we have to bring a group, but it was too cold. It's very cold, and Brazilians don't like cold weather, so we decided Gimel Tammuz. So since then, over 20 years, coming hundreds of people in the schus from this house, besides the way they hosted every Friday night tens of Brazilians with Geschmacke Fabringens.
זה השפיע כל כך על היהודים האלה שבמשך 18 שנים רצופות תמיד ג' תמוז היה קבוצת אורחים ברזילאים שהיא קיבלה אותנו באופן מיוחד.
Our 4 daughters were very lucky to have Mora Razel as their teacher. And there's no question that she was a great role model for them with her warmth, for Yiddishkeit, for Chassidishkeit.
Razel just was a people person. She always greeted everybody. Seva Panim Yafas, she was a Sameach Bechelka. She just was always happy, and that happiness and that excitement just brimmed from her, and just is what attracted everybody to her. When our family was going through a hardship before Yom Kippur this year, Razel was in the hospital, not doing so well herself, but she left me a beautiful voice note saying that she's heard about our Agmas Nefesh and she's wishing us well, and that the Eibishter has a plan, and though it's unclear, things are going to become clear. And she ended her message with Chazak, to be strong and to stay strong. And this is when she herself was not in the very best situation, but she thought of others and reached out to me, and her message was so powerful and so special to me, and that I actually listened to it over the next few weeks because it was giving me strength. So I learned a lot from Razel, and I'm sure her family is going to carry on the beautiful, beautiful traits of Adol Razel.
I, Baruch Hashem, had the privilege of working with her in Chinuch for many years. The motherly love, the warmth and care that she gave to the Meidelach was exemplary. Whatever Razel taught was with a sense of pride in being a Yid, a Chassid, instilling in the Meidelach the love and joy of doing a mitzvah.
I have 10 children, all of them happily married. Razel did 5 of these shidduchim. I don't know if that's a record of some sort or not, but she's certainly a very important person in our lives and in our family.
She was always complimenting us as parents, encouraging us. Oh, you did this and you did that, and I see how the girls are so inspired by that. She was giving us chizuk, and always with a smile, always had a warm word to say, an encouraging word. And like I said, we are lucky. We are lucky that our girls had the good fortune to be students in Mora Razel's class.
To know Razel is to love Razel. And whatever Razel did was with a full heart. I learned so much from Razel. I learned how to be a mensch. I learned how to be an employer and an employee too. I learned how to work with precious little kinderlach. And most of all, I learned how to be a friend and a caring person.
It is written in Sanhedrin, whoever teaches his friend's child Torah is considered as though he gave birth to that child. Razel, you have many children out there.
I remember her sitting with a student and just talking for hours, and she had no connection to like our family or our community, but she was so, was something I've never seen. An exceptional person, her warmth and everything done with so much class, and
she's the kind of person who was, like I say, she knew you, she got people, she understood people, she was pleasant. It was a pleasure to talk to her, and always upbeat. I remember her voice was always upbeat, lovely, vibrant.
The last time I visited Razel this past summer, she was so full of positivity and hope. She told me that the doctor only wanted to gain a few pounds. I generously offered her some of mine, but she said that she already got that offer from a few other people.
I want to tell you kids something. I know some of you, most wonderful kids that this couple have. And your kids are full of moral and ethics besides Chassidishkeit. Something that's very hard to see today. Keep it up. That's the best way to give cover to your mother. The cover is not only when you're alive, Baruch Hashem shall stay alive through you kids.
So when I was about 8 years old, my father became sick and went to the hospital. And at that time I was in my Shlosh class. Mrs. Wolvovsky invited me to the house for Shabbos morning, to go to shul with the family. I don't have siblings, and I don't have a large family, and so being able to go to a shul with a family was really beneficial for me. I remember coming to their house from Yom Tov and for Shabbos, and on Pesach everyone got a Manashtana present, and I got one too, and that was something that I don't think I realized at the time, but she really put a lot of emphasis on making sure that I felt comfortable and I felt at home. And to this day, I'm very thankful for her generosity towards me. I really feel like I'm so lucky that she was so hospitable to me and made me feel like a part of the family. It's clearly something that impacted me in my life, and I'm forever grateful for it.
Razel taught me how to be a good mechutenes there. She modeled it with such grace and intelligence and beauty. And I really feel so lucky to have had her in my life.
And for many years, students stayed there, but she would also host
One. Hello. Mosh, bring up the volume for the mic a second. Hello. Somebody left a pair of glasses. It's on the podium. Someone left a pair of glasses.